What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another modern video, and today we're going to be taking a look at a deck that has been making the rounds and has been, well, maybe not the most popular. It's kind of one of the most interesting decks that's popped up probably in the last few weeks of the modern format, and a deck that I've seen increasingly more play kind of as it develops and ends up getting a little bit more streamlined. So today we're going to be taking a look at the green-red Breach Storm. For modern, this is Aspiring Spike's list. It's about a month old, but I think a lot of like what the deck does, minus like maybe a card or two, is basically what this deck is doing. So one of the benefits of playing a green red storm over blue red storm is this card right here, Goblin Narcomancer, which is essentially the Goblin Electromancer for this deck, except instant sorceries only get reduced with the Electromancer. This one you can reduce the cost of red and green spells, period. So essentially that means instead of cards like Desperate Ritual, Metamorphose, Pyretic Ritual being cheaper, your Underworld Breaches, which are going to be 1 mana, are going to cost, or they're usually 2 mana, are going to cost 1 mana. Your Grape Shots are going to cost 1. Your Empty the Warrens, 3, so on and so forth. Obviously, being able to stack up these as well is going to make the deck, the majority of the deck just cost like 1 mana. So with that, you have Dragon Rage Channeler to fuel the graveyard, to essentially be able to cast more cards from your graveyard with Underworld Breach, while also just as you cast those cards, fuel your graveyard even more to then be able to cast even more spells. So it just kind of plays both ways, where it gets you to the initial part where you can cast those spells and then continuing to do so. In the sorceries, you have a Grape Shot and you have Empty the Warrens. These are your main win conditions. These have always been Storm's win conditions forever. Uh, Grape Shot, obviously getting to deal 1 damage to any target, and getting to copy it. Empty the Warrens, getting to make it 2/1/1 goblins. Obviously, each one has like their own different situations. Grape Shot is usually the kill that you're going to have with this deck, just because you're not going to be able to, even if you like counter the first one, like the only way to really beat like a Grape Shot is like a Flusterstorm, essentially. So, I mean, that's something. And most decks aren't playing like Flusterstorm in the main deck anyway. That's usually a sideboard card you have to worry about, which could also get Empty the Warrens too. But, beside the point, Flusterstorm isn't really that much of like a played card in the 75 period for most decks. So, pretty safe to go off with either of these cards. Abundant Harvest basically allows you to, find lands or non-lands, I guess, whenever you feel like it. You reveal cards from the top of your library to reveal a card of the chosen kind. You put the card in your hand, put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. This deck plays 15 lands, so the fact that you can keep like 1 land Abundant Harvest is essentially going to put you up to 2 lands, which is going to take you to the Goblin, which, maybe you want to hit like your third land drop, and then you can just kind of go off from there, casting all these rituals and things like that that you have here. Galvanic Relay is a card that was printed in Modern Horizons 2 along with some of these other cards, where you essentially get to exile the top card of your library, and during your next turn, you may play that card. So essentially, this kind of sets you up for some of those bigger turns as well. It has Storm, so you are able to, maybe cast a few spells, maybe feel like an Underworld Breach, and then just, cast a Galvanic Relay, exile like 4 or 5 cards, and that's essentially like drawing 4 or 5 cards of this deck. Because the next turn, you're probably going to be able to go off and either kill your opponent or flood the board with a ton of goblins. Uh, you have 4 Lightning Bolt, which I'm assuming is just more of like interaction slash, kind of acts as like a 4 damage bird spell, because it adds 1 to the Grape Shot with the actual casting of the spell, plus dealing 3 damage, which means you need like 3 less spells to actually kill with a Grape Shot, from 20. You have Desperate Ritual, Pyretic Ritual, Metamorphose. These are just like the staple rituals. 2 mana, get 3. 2 mana, get 3. Obviously, with the Narcomancer, you get 1 for 3. And Metamorphose being one of the best rituals, because for 1 mana, you end up getting 2 in any combination of colors, and you get to draw a card. Able to go through your deck super, super quick. Mishra's Bauble, getting to do a few things. It's a free spell that you can obviously get Storm from. Getting to cast this with like a Dragon Rage Channeler in play means that you just get to start putting cards into your graveyard immediately from playing a Dragon Rage Chandler. Plus, there is probably some amount of times where like you're playing a bauble, and then casting like an Underworld Breach, and then just kind of value breaching, getting to draw a few cards with the Mishra's Bauble can also be pretty good, just to kind of get things like kick-started, so you can find like another breach and attempt to go off. The mana base, looking at it, is super simple. You have 3 Bloodstained Mire, 3 Scalding Tarn, 3 Wooded Foothills as your fetch lands. Then you have 4 Stomping Ground and 2 Mountains. Again, you're playing 15 lands in this deck. You really don't need that many lands to begin with, and especially when you have just the cost reducer like the Goblin, you could probably just easily win the game with like maybe 2 or 3 lands in play. I think having more isn't necessarily like the end of the world, but you definitely don't want to flood out playing with this deck. And if you flood out with 15 lands, then it's just extremely unlucky. Sideboard, Nature's Claims, Veils of Summers, Weather the Storm, and kind of like the mirror matches is pretty sweet, considering that like they deal one, you basically gain 2 for every grave shot, and then you just get to gain 3 life on top of that as well. You have Blood Moon, which in itself is easy way to win games because you could literally just like turn to a Blood Moon and your opponent more than likely can't really deal with it. A lot of decks, a lot of people like just are desensitized to the fact that Blood Moon still exists in the format and don't take it into consideration, especially when they don't see it in the main board. 2 more Empty the Warrens and Jangotha the Wellspring as a companion for this deck because we share no mana cost the same in the cost of these spells and stuff. And that is Green Red Breach Storm. Super simple, easy deck, at least kind of going over it. It's a deck that is very complicated. Storm is inherently a very complicated deck. It's made to look easy because it's just like, oh, someone's just casting like a bunch of rituals, blah, 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 and then they're casting like a grape shot. And really, while I don't think this is as intricate as the blue-red Storm decks, I think this deck is difficult and has a degree of difficulty where you kind of want to rehearse going through some like the simple lines, of trying to get all these things together and, you know, end up killing your opponent and winning the game on the spot rather than, spinning your tires, giving your opponent like maybe more turns than they need, giving yourself not enough turns and forcing yourself to go off because you think you have to instead of waiting to the last possible moment. Just the small little details and stuff, and maybe that's something I can go over in like another video and stuff. It's just kind of like a general rule of thumb for like playing combo decks and stuff like this. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments about this deck if you played against it, so on and so forth. Check out Aspiring Spike as well because he makes a lot of really good content. He's just awesome and fun to watch and someone that you can learn a lot from as well. And of course, consider subscribing to this channel as well. So I post videos like this for Modern with gameplay videos and hopefully maybe some streams and stuff thrown in there and some other fun Magic content stuff. I just end up coming up with like weird stuff and it actually does very well. So I appreciate everyone's support and all of that. That's of course going to do it for me in this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next one.